me! I cannot help you.
The air in the hallway crackled with a cruel stillness, a silence that amplified every brutal sound. I'll make you bleed until you learn to disappear. The words, hissed with venomous intent, were Brittany's, a cold promise before she slammed Jasmine against the lockers. Books clattered, papers spiraled to the floor like discarded autumn leaves, and a tableau of frozen students became unwitting witnesses. Brittany, the self-crowned queen of Westlake High, towered over her cowering prey, her designer heel descending with sickening deliberation. A crunch, a whisper of shattered plastic, and Jasmine's meticulously crafted science project lay ruined, a testament to unchecked power. The destruction was not merely an act of aggression. It was a performance, methodical and public, designed to maximize humiliation. Around them, a constellation of phones rose, cold lenses eager to record, share, and amplify the spectacle. Each click of a shutter, each tap on a screen, turned 30 classmates into silent accomplices. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, nobody helped. A tear, a solitary trail on Jasmine's cheek, marked the moment. Brittany, relishing her dominion, yanked Jasmine's head up by her hair. "Look at them all watching you break," she sneered, forcing eye contact with the transfixed crowd. Her gaze swept over the faces, asserting, "This is what happens when you forget who runs this school." Blood welled from Jasmine's lip, a ruby bead against pale skin. But in her eyes, a transformation was taking place. Fear, slowly giving way to something colder, something far more dangerous. Unbeknownst to Brittany and her audience, Jasmine's thumb was already hovering, not in despair, but over her father's contact. A silent call to a formidable alliance. Jasmine Davis found herself alone at her new locker, the stark military farewell from her father, just that morning until a raw memory. 3 weeks had passed since Colonel Davis, her steadfast anchor, had returned from his classified deployment, and only 3 days since their arrival in this seemingly tranquil, small town. New school, new challenges, yes, but the same insidious prejudices she'd encountered before. As she navigated the bustling halls of Westlake High towards her first class, a low hum of whispers followed her, eyes tracking her every move. She was the only black student in a sea of predominantly white faces, an anomaly in a town unaccustomed to diversity. Her father's words, a mantra of survival, echoed in her mind. Stand tall. Observe before engaging. Identify allies and threats. These weren't just fatherly platitudes. They were tactical directives from a man who had trained her in the art of resilience since childhood. Brittany Morgan, the undisputed cheerleader captain, noticed Jasmine immediately. Her status at Westlake was unquestioned, a social hierarchy built not just on charisma, but on the solid foundation of her father's influence. He chaired the school board and owned half the town's businesses. Her territory, a carefully cultivated dominion of popularity and power, felt inexplicably threatened by the quiet new girl. Mr. Abernathy, a history teacher, unwittingly fanned the flames when he singled out Jasmine, praising her exceptional entrance exam scores. "We're always excited to welcome exceptional students," he announced to the class, his words a well-meaning but ultimately ill-timed endorsement. Brittany's smile tightened, a barely perceptible flicker of menace. After school, Jasmine reported to Principal Foster's office, summoned for a welcome chat. The administrator, a man seemingly buried beneath a mountain of paperwork, barely glanced up from his computer. "Adjustment difficulties are normal for transfer students," he droned, dismissing Jasmine's subtle mention of the cold reception she'd received. "Try harder to fit in. Westlake has traditions. Respect them." His words, delivered with a dismissive wave, underscored a deep-seated administrative apathy, a tacit endorsement of the existing social order. It was a common failing in institutions where maintaining a placid surface took precedence over addressing underlying injustices. At home, Colonel Davis, a man whose eyes were trained to detect threats in the most hostile territories, noticed his daughter's quietness during dinner. Her usual vivacity was muted, replaced by a subtle tension. He saw what she was trying to hide. "Trouble at school?" he asked, his voice calm but probing. "Nothing I can't handle," Jasmine replied, straightening her shoulders, a precise mimicry of his own posture. "You taught me resilience." Later, Colonel Davis retreated to his private shooting range behind their isolated home. His shots, grouped within a dime-sized cluster at 800 yards, were a testament to perfect precision, a focus honed by years in the field. The military medals locked in his office safe told a silent story of classified career achievements, operations too dangerous to display, earning him the whispered nickname Eagle Eye among special forces. This quiet ritual wasn't just practice. It was a form of meditation, a way to process the unseen threats that his instincts, now sharpened by paternal concern, were beginning to perceive. The next day, track team tryouts inadvertently changed the trajectory of events. Coach Martinez, a no-nonsense woman with a keen eye for talent, clocked Jasmine's 400-meter time. Her eyes widened, incredulous. "Fastest time I've seen in years," she announced, her voice echoing across the field. "You might be our next team captain." Brittany overheard, her water bottle crushing in her grip, a silent testament to her escalating rage. The look in Brittany's eyes promised consequences, a retribution that would arrive long before the next morning bell. The cafeteria, usually a cacophony of lunchtime chaos, fell into a temporary lull as Brittany, with practiced theatricality, accidentally bumped Jasmine's tray. Cold milk splashed across Jasmine's lap, soaking into her new jeans. Brittany's friends erupted in synchronized laughter, their mirth a perfectly choreographed backdrop. "Oops," Brittany's apology dripped with insincerity. "Guess you should watch where you're standing." Jasmine, exhibiting a composure that baffled and visibly frustrated Brittany, calmly grabbed napkins, dabbing at the spreading stain without a word. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Brittany stepped closer, her voice rising, seeking the emotional outburst she could exploit. "Your dad kills people for a living, right? No wonder you're so weird." The cafeteria quieted, students anticipating the drama, phones already poised. Jasmine met Brittany's gaze steadily. "My father serves his country with honor." Not everyone understands what that means. Her composed response, devoid of tears or anger, was a strategic counter, disarming Brittany, who had expected a breakdown. Before Brittany could escalate further, Mr. Abernathy, a well-meaning but often ineffectual teacher, approached. "Everything okay here?" he asked, glancing between them. "Just a little accident," Brittany replied, her voice saccharine. "No problem. Be more careful next time," was all Mr. Abernathy offered, before turning away, another missed opportunity for intervention. In American history class, Jasmine's analysis of Civil War strategy earned Ms. Rodriguez's sincere praise. "Excellent tactical assessment. Someone knows their military history." It was a genuine commendation, but one that further fueled Brittany's resentment. From across the room, Brittany watched as Tyler and Aisha, two popular students, asked Jasmine to join their study group. The threat to Brittany's meticulously maintained social hierarchy grew, a silent alarm ringing in her mind. Between classes, Brittany pulled her inner circle into the girls' bathroom. "She thinks she's so special," she hissed, her voice laced with venom. "We need to put her in her place." That evening, Colonel Davis, ever vigilant, noticed the dried milk stain on Jasmine's jeans as she loaded the washing machine. "Rough day?" he asked, his gaze gentle but perceptive. "Just an accident," Jasmine shrugged, maintaining her facade of normalcy. They ate dinner together, a ritual they had steadfastly maintained despite years of his deployments. He shared sanitized stories from his time overseas, careful to filter out the classified operations that had earned him the Eagle Eye moniker among special forces. His phone rang, and he checked the screen, his expression shifting subtly. "Eagle Eye," a voice said when he answered. "Secure line needed." Colonel Davis moved to his office, closing the door, leaving Jasmine to wonder what new mission called her father away. In her bedroom, Jasmine found a note slipped into her backpack, her locker combination, followed by the chilling message, "We know how to get to you." The next day, her stomach dropped as she opened her gym locker. Her clothes were gone. In their place hung a crude, horrifying costume, a grass skirt and a tribal mask adorned with racist caricatures. It was a vicious, unambiguous act of racial harassment. "Coach Wilson," she reported, holding up the offensive items, her voice trembling with indignation. "Someone took my gym clothes." The middle-aged coach, engrossed in her clipboard, barely glanced up. "Forgot your uniform?" "Not my problem. Either participate in what you have, or take a 0 for today. Everyone's waiting." Davis, "Make your choice." 30 pairs of eyes tracked Jasmine as she emerged from the locker room in her regular clothes, refusing to dignify the racist costume by wearing it. Coach Wilson, with obvious disapproval, marked her clipboard. 0 participation points. 3 more, and you'll fail the semester. Brittany smirked from across the gym, her phone subtly positioned to capture Jasmine's public humiliation. By lunch, social media buzzed with posts tagging #NewGirlFailure and #AntiFollowBasicRules. Comments, each more vicious than the last, piled up, turning Jasmine into a digital pariah. This amplification of bullying, a chilling hallmark of the digital age, transformed a schoolyard squabble into a public spectacle, the mob mentality unchecked by the distance of a screen. After class, Jasmine approached Vice Principal Hricks about the incident. His office, despite the motivational posters, felt cold and sterile. "Do you have proof someone took your clothes?" he asked, without looking up. "The racist costume left in my locker, which you didn't bring as evidence." He sighed, finally meeting her eyes. "Look, Jasmine, you're new here. Sometimes students use racism as an excuse when they're simply being too sensitive. Learn to take a joke." It was the classic victim blaming, a bureaucratic sidestep that demonstrated profound administrative negligence. Miss Rodriguez, witnessing Jasmine leave the office, recognized the defeated posture. She pulled her aside into an empty classroom. "I saw what happened," the teacher admitted, her voice low. "Document everything. Dates, times, witnesses. The administration won't act without overwhelming evidence. Brittany's father has significant influence over school policies." Jasmine nodded, understanding the hidden message. Justice, in this environment, required strategy, not just truth. In the hallway, Brittany gathered her followers, emboldened by yet another consequence-free victory. "She went crying to Hricks and got shut down," she announced, her voice triumphant. "Tomorrow, we escalate. She clearly doesn't understand her place here yet." The group dispersed, plotting their next attack with renewed confidence. Jasmine walked home alone, her composure finally cracking once the school disappeared from view. Tears streamed down her face, the pent-up frustration and pain finally overflowing. She considered calling her father, but the timing felt wrong. His interview with the security consulting firm was tomorrow. His focus should be there, not on her problems. She wiped her eyes before entering their house, but her red-rimmed eyes told a story she couldn't hide. That night, Jasmine pulled out a leather-bound journal labeled Evidence and began methodically documenting every incident with military precision. She sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by the growing dossier. Journal pages filled with detailed entries, timestamps, locations, witness names. Her phone screen displayed screenshots of social media attacks, organized in labeled folders. She created a secure cloud account, uploading everything with the encryption protocols her father had taught her. The process felt less like homework and more like assembling mission intelligence, a skill absorbed from watching Colonel Davis prepare for deployments. A soft knock interrupted her work. She quickly closed the journal as her father entered. "Everything okay in here?" Colonel Davis surveyed the room with the same attention he once used to clear buildings in hostile territory. "Just homework," Jasmine forced a smile. "That calculus is brutal." His eyes caught the edge of the journal peeking from beneath her textbook, but he didn't mention it. Instead, he nodded toward her window. "Noticed your blinds were open." Good to maintain privacy after dark. This isn't paranoia. It's tactical awareness. It was the same instinct that had kept him alive through 3 tours in classified operations. "I'll close them." "Thanks, Dad." After he left, Jasmine heard him making his nightly security check, testing door locks, checking window latches, scanning the perimeter of their property. The routine that once seemed excessive now felt profoundly comforting. Later that night, Muffled voices drifted from her father's office. Unable to sleep, Jasmine approached the partially open door. "Target surveillance confirmed," her father said into his secure phone. "Package remains protected. Timeline unchanged." Military code words. Not unusual, but his tone carried an urgency she recognized from previous deployments. On his desk sat a framed photograph. Colonel Davis receiving a medal from a stern-faced general. The citation text deliberately blurred for security reasons. Morning arrived after a restless night. A decision had been made. Jasmine called her godfather while her father showered. "Uncle Mike, it's Jasmine." She kept her voice low, a conspiratorial whisper. "I need your help, but you can't tell Dad yet." She detailed the escalating harassment, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. Uncle Mike, her father's former teammate and a federal prosecutor, listened without interruption. "You've done everything right documenting like this," he finally said. "Give me 24 hours. Don't engage with the aggressors." Unknown to Jasmine, Colonel Davis passed her bedroom door during the call, catching fragments of the conversation. His expression shifted subtly, the micro-change his military colleagues would recognize as him entering mission mode. At breakfast, everything appeared normal. Jasmine mentioned a history project while Colonel Davis reviewed his interview notes. Only his casual mention of visiting the school that afternoon to finalize some transfer paperwork hinted at anything unusual. Jasmine entered Westlake High with an altered posture, shoulders squared, gaze vigilant. She recorded each interaction on her phone's secure app, noting times with military precision. As Brittany approached for the daily torment, she hesitated, thrown by the unfamiliar look in Jasmine's eyes. The calm focus of a strategist who had already mapped her opponent's defeat. The girl's bathroom door slammed shut, echoing the finality of a trap, as Brittany and 3 friends cornered Jasmine during lunch period. Brittany blocked the exit, while the others surrounded their target, closing the net with practiced efficiency. "Look what I found," Brittany said, dangling Jasmine's history project, a detailed timeline of civil rights milestones due tomorrow. "Impressive work. Would be tragic if something happened to it." One girl produced scissors, snipping the corner of the poster board with a sickening snip. Another grabbed Jasmine's hair, cutting a small lock before she could pull away. "A souvenir," she laughed, dropping the curls into the sink. Jasmine's hand slid into her pocket, activating her phone's recording app without removing it. "Why are you doing this?" she asked clearly, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Because we can," Brittany answered, tearing the project in half. "And because no one will stop us. Not the teachers, not the principal, and certainly not your killer daddy. You've done this before, haven't you?" Brittany smirked, taking the bait. "Why do you think no one helps you? They've all learned their lesson, and if you report this, we'll make everything so much worse." The bell rang, a merciful interruption. The girls left Jasmine with her destroyed project and a recorded confession. Later, Miss Winters, the school counselor, pulled Jasmine aside in the hallway. "I've noticed things," she said quietly. "The way certain students treat you. I want to help." Jasmine studied the woman's sincere expression. "What can you actually do?" Miss Winters' smile faltered. "There are administrative complexities, but I'm here to listen." "Thank you," Jasmine replied politely, a note of resignation in her voice. "But I have it handled." Between classes, Jasmine spotted her father through the administration office window. Colonel Davis stood tall in civilian clothes, pressed slacks and a button-down shirt that couldn't quite hide his military bearing. Principal Foster gestured animatedly, his forced smile not reaching his eyes. "Just standard transfer protocols, Colonel Davis," his voice carried through the partially open door. "I assure you, Jasmine is adjusting beautifully." Her father's face remained neutral, but Jasmine recognized his assessment mode, the same expression he wore when evaluating security threats overseas. Brittany noticed the interaction from across the hall. She pulled out her phone, typing rapidly to her inner circle. "Daddy's girl tried getting help." Principal shut him down. "Time for our final solution to the Jasmine problem." The message circulated among her friends, each reply more enthusiastic than the last. The plan was set for tomorrow morning, an insidious culmination of their cruel campaign. Jasmine's phone vibrated with a text from her father. "Operational assessment complete. Protocol 7 initiated. Stand by." A chill ran down her spine, not of fear, but of anticipation. "Did you hear about her dad?" Brittany's voice carried deliberately across the cafeteria. "My father says he's mentally unstable from killing too many people. That's why they had to move here. No military base would keep him." The rumor, a calculated character assassination, spread like wildfire through whispers and text messages. Teachers overheard but focused on their lunches, unwilling to intervene, another testament to the pervasive culture of silence. Jasmine entered the cafeteria to a sudden, unnatural silence, followed by resumed conversations too casual to be genuine. In advanced placement history, Miss Rodriguez divided the class into teams for a strategic analysis of the Battle of Gettysburg. "Your objective is to identify the critical decision points that determine the outcome," she explained. "Work together to develop alternative strategies." Jasmine's team watched in surprise as she quickly mapped the battlefield on paper, identifying tactical advantages with expert precision. "If we reallocate forces here and here," she demonstrated, her finger tracing lines across the map, while establishing a secondary defense line along this ridge, we control both the high ground and maintain mobility. Her solution impressed even Miss Rodriguez. "That shows remarkable tactical awareness, Jasmine. Have you studied military strategy before?" Before she could answer, Tyler from her team whispered, "That was amazing." "Where did you learn that?" The positive attention, a rare commodity for Jasmine, fueled Brittany's simmering rage. During lunch, Brittany gave a subtle signal to her friends. Seconds later, a milk carton flew across the room, striking Jasmine and splashing across her shirt. More food followed, a barrage of slop. Mr. Abernathy rushed over as Jasmine sat, dripping with cafeteria detritus. "What's going on here?" "She started it," Brittany's friend Madison claimed immediately. "She threw her lunch at us first because we wouldn't sit with her." Despite multiple witnesses seeing the truth, the teacher sighed. "Detention, Jasmine. This behavior is unacceptable. The systemic bias was laid bare." Meanwhile, Colonel Davis met Uncle Mike at Veterans Coffee 2 blocks from the school. Both men reviewed information on military-grade tablets, speaking in the short, economical shorthand developed during joint operations. "Asset infiltration confirmed," Uncle Mike reported quietly. "Documentation exceeds threshold for intervention." Colonel Davis made 3 calls in succession, each to unnamed contacts, his expression controlled, but his eyes carrying the focused intensity his unit recognized before high-risk missions. After school, Jasmine discovered her backpack soaking in a toilet, its contents destroyed. Her project deadline loomed tomorrow. Instead of panic, she methodically photographed the damage, adding the images to her evidence file. She removed salvageable items, mentally recalculating her timeline to rebuild the project tonight. The strategic adjustment came naturally, another inheritance from her father's training. Walking home, Jasmine noticed an unmarked sedan following at a distance, 2 men in suits tracking her movement while speaking into concealed communication devices. The scope of the operation, now initiated by her father and Uncle Mike, was far larger than she could yet comprehend. A silent federal machine beginning to turn its gears. The morning sunlight glinted off the trophy cases in Westlake High, their polished surfaces reflecting a legacy of athletic triumphs and an underlying culture that prized achievement over equity. Students gathered for the quarterly Achievement Assembly, a routine event designed to celebrate the school's best. Jasmine reviewed her presentation notes one final time, the only freshman selected to present her historical analysis. The spotlight felt both an opportunity and a vulnerability. Just then, Brittany and 5 of her friends surrounded her in the empty hallway, their formation blocking all escape routes. "Big day for you," Brittany purred, her voice sweet with artificial concern, a predator's lullaby. "Ready for your moment of fame?" Before Jasmine could respond, one girl knocked the notes from her hands, while another swept them into a waiting backpack. Brittany stepped closer, her designer perfume suffocating in its intensity. "Oops, guess you'll have to improvise." She placed both hands on Jasmine's shoulders, a theatrical gesture of false camaraderie. "Let me help you down the stairs." The push came with calculated force, enough to send Jasmine tumbling down half a flight of stairs, but not enough to cause catastrophic injury. Her elbow struck the railing. Her knee slammed against the edge of a step. Mr. Jensen, a bewildered teacher, rounded the corner in time to see Jasmine sprawled at the bottom of the staircase. "What happened here?" he demanded, helping her up. "She tripped," Madison answered quickly, a well-rehearsed lie. "We tried to catch her, but she fell too fast." "Is that what happened?" Mr. Jensen asked Jasmine directly, his gaze searching. Jasmine met Brittany's threatening stare, weighing her options with tactical precision. "I lost my balance," she said finally, recognizing this wasn't the battlefield for her stand. Her father's training wasn't about fighting every battle, but winning the war. The nurse treated Jasmine's injuries with efficiency, but little sympathy. "These stairs can be tricky," she commented while applying antiseptic, "but making a fuss only makes things worse." Some students learn that the hard way. Her words, delivered with a hint of passive-aggressive judgment, reinforced the school's culture of victim-blaming. Principal Foster visited the nurse's office, his concern performative, a hollow echo of genuine care. Perhaps you should consider another school if you're having this much trouble adjusting, Jasmine. Westlake isn't for everyone. His suggestion, delivered with a patronizing tone, made it clear that the school preferred to expel the problem rather than address it. Before Jasmine could respond, a commotion drew the principal away. Through the office window, she watched Brittany's father stride through the administration area, his expensive suit and commanding presence parting staff like water. "My daughter mentioned concerns about the new student," he announced, his voice booming loud enough for Jasmine to hear. "I want to ensure everything is being handled appropriately." Mr. Abernathy approached tentatively. "Mr. Morgan, regarding some incidents I've observed, write up your concerns through proper channels." Morgan dismissed him with a wave. "The board will review them at our convenience." His arrogance and certainty in his untouchable influence were palpable. That evening, Jasmine finally broke. The tears came silently at first, then in heaving sobs, as she showed her father the bruises forming on her elbow and knee. "They planned it," she explained, her voice steady despite her tears. "They've been documenting everything, Dad. Just like you taught me." Colonel Davis listened without interruption, his questions precise when she finished. Not about her feelings, but about operational details, times, locations, participants, witnesses. His focus transformed her pain into actionable intelligence, a critical component of their impending Operation School Board. Uncle Mike arrived with 3 unmarked folders, security classifications visible on their edges. The men spread maps of the school and town across the dining table, marking locations with military precision. "Rules of engagement?" Uncle Mike asked, his voice low and serious. "Proportional response," Colonel Davis answered, his eyes fixed on the map. "No collateral damage." Colonel Davis made a final call, his voice resonating with authority. "This is Eagle Eye. Confirm green light for Operation School Board. Assets in position. Timeline 0800 hours. Morning announcements crackled through Westlake High's speakers as students settled into first period. Brittany entered the hallway, flanked by her loyal followers, scanning for Jasmine with predatory focus. Today's plan, orchestrated in group texts throughout the night, would establish dominance once and for all. She spotted her target at her locker and approached with deliberate steps. "Ready for round 2? Yesterday was just the warm-up. Before Jasmine could respond, the main entrance doors swung open with dramatic flair. Colonel Davis strode in, wearing his full dress uniform, medals and insignia glinting under the fluorescent lights. 4 serious men in dark suits flanked him, badges visible on their belts. The hallway fell silent, a collective gasp rippling through the stunned student body. Principal Foster emerged from his office, his face shifting from annoyance to confusion to alarm in rapid succession. "Colonel Davis," he began with forced cordiality, "we don't have a meeting scheduled." "This isn't a meeting," Colonel Davis interrupted, his voice carrying with parade ground authority, cutting through the silence like a sharp blade. "This is an intervention." Students pressed against lockers as the formidable procession moved toward Brittany and Jasmine. Colonel Davis positioned himself beside his daughter, his posture radiating controlled power, a silent shield. Principal Foster, I'd like to introduce my colleagues. He gestured to the men beside him. Special Agent Harrison, FBI Civil Rights Division. Captain Reynolds, Judge Advocate General's Corps. Agent Michaels, Department of Education Office for Civil Rights. And my former teammate, Federal Prosecutor Michael Williams, specializing in hate crimes and civil rights violations. Whispers erupted through the gathering crowd, a tide of dawning comprehension. Principal Foster's complexion paled to ash. "I don't understand," he stammered, his voice weak. "Why are federal agents at my school?" Uncle Mike stepped forward, opening a leather portfolio. "Your school triggered multiple flags in our monitoring system. Pattern recognition algorithms identified systematic discrimination and administrative negligence. This was not just about Jasmine. It was about the insidious bureaucratic failures that allowed such prejudice to thrive." "What monitoring system?" Brittany interjected, her confidence faltering for the first time. Colonel Davis turned toward her, his expression neutral, but his eyes laser-focused. "After 3 separate complaints from minority students at Westlake High reached federal threshold, surveillance protocols were activated. I'm not just a Green Beret sniper, Miss Morgan. I command a classified counter-terrorism unit that includes domestic extremism in its purview." He turned back to the principal. "As of this morning, I've been appointed Special Advisor to the Department of Education's Anti-Discrimination Task Force with this district as my first assessment." The front doors burst open again as Brittany's father charged in, his face flushed with outrage. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" he demanded, his voice accustomed to command. "I'm calling the superintendent immediately." "Mr. Morgan," Uncle Mike acknowledged him calmly. "Perfect timing. We were about to discuss your government contracts." Morgan froze mid-stride, his bluster dissolving. "Your construction company holds 7 federal contracts worth approximately $43 million. Uncle Mike continued, his voice even and precise. "All currently under ethics review due to your undisclosed conflict of interest." "What conflict?" Morgan sputtered, a desperate denial. "Serving on a school board while using your position to influence disciplinary decisions involving your daughter constitutes a disqualifying conflict of interest under federal acquisition regulation. Subpart 3.1. Brittany watched her father's confidence crumble, the unthinkable happening in real time. Her untouchable status evaporated under the weight of federal badges and military authority. Her father's power, once her impenetrable shield, now her greatest liability. Jasmine stood tall beside her father, no longer a victim, but a catalyst. Her documented evidence, meticulously collected and organized, had provided the final pieces for a case already building. "This was never just about me," she addressed the stunned students directly, her voice clear and strong. "This pattern existed before I arrived. The difference is I had the training to document it properly." Colonel Davis surveyed the silent hallway, his voice now addressing everyone present, his words cutting through the lingering tension. "Educational institutions should be secure environments for all students. When that security is compromised by prejudice and leadership failure, it becomes a matter of national interest." Agent Harrison stepped forward, his tone grave. "We'll require immediate access to all disciplinary records administrative communications, and security footage. Federal investigators will interview staff and students throughout the week. Principal Foster attempted to regain control, a futile gesture. Surely we can handle this internally. That opportunity passed when you dismissed multiple documented complaints, Colonel Davis interrupted, his gaze unyielding. This isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about accountability. A crowd of students had gathered, phones recording everything, a stark reversal of the earlier complicit silence. Jasmine caught glimpses of relief on some faces, silent victims recognizing that change had finally arrived. As the administrators attempted damage control, Colonel Davis opened a sealed folder containing evidence that extended beyond the school to implicate city officials in a systematic cover-up, revealing layers of corruption that seeped far deeper than the school walls. The gymnasium, intended for the assembly, now filled with students, teachers, and hastily summoned administrators, transformed into a makeshift courtroom as federal officials commandeered the space. Superintendent Wallace, flown in from a conference 3 states away, perspired visibly under the auditorium lights, his usual composure shattered. Agent Harrison stood at the podium, his bureau credentials displayed on screens flanking the stage, broadcasting the gravity of the situation. Westlake High School is now under federal investigation for systematic civil rights violations under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and Title IX educational amendments. Murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd as he detailed preliminary findings. 27 documented incidents of racial harassment, 43 cases of administrative negligence, and 17 instances of potentially criminal intimidation, all within the past 18 months. The scale of the failure was staggering. Effective immediately, the following personnel are placed on administrative leave pending investigation outcomes. The names appeared on screen. Principal Foster, Vice Principal Hicks, Athletic Director Simmons, and 4 teachers, including Coach Wilson. In the audience, Brittany and her inner circle received simultaneous text messages from their parents, their phone screens filled with variations of the same urgent message. Come home immediately. Outside, news vans lined the street as parents arrived, demanding explanations, their faces a mixture of confusion and anger. Colonel Davis stood with a select group of parents whose children had experienced similar treatment, his military bearing providing calm amid the chaos. Your children weren't lying, he told them quietly. The system failed them, but we now have mechanisms to correct that failure. Morgan Construction's headquarters across town faced its own siege as government auditors arrived unannounced. Employees watched as federal agents secured servers and financial records. By noon, Morgan's stock price plummeted 47%. By 2 p.m., 3 board members had resigned. Inside the school library, now converted to a temporary command center, Uncle Mike coordinated with families coming forward with similar experiences. Each new testimony strengthened the class action lawsuit taking shape under his guidance. The pattern shows clear disparate impact discrimination, he explained to the gathered families. When 94% of disciplinary actions target minority students who comprise less than 12% of the student body, we establish prima facie evidence of systematic bias. The emergency school board meeting convened at 4 p.m., public attendance overflowing into hallways. Colonel Davis presented evidence with tactical precision. His slideshow transitioned from cold statistics to specific incidents, each documented with timestamps and corroborating witnesses. This represents institutional failure at multiple levels, he concluded. Not isolated incidents, but a pervasive culture of discrimination, reinforced by administrative protection of certain students based on their parents' community standing. Morgan attempted to counter from his position at the board table. These allegations are greatly exaggerated. A few isolated incidents are documented on camera, Colonel Davis interrupted, signaling Agent Michaels. The wall screen displayed security footage from hallways, classrooms, and common areas, each showing incidents exactly as victims described them, followed by administrative dismissal of complaints. Parents gasped as the evidence mounted. Every camera in this school has been archived and analyzed using pattern recognition software, Colonel Davis explained. The same technology we use to identify terrorist cell behavior overseas. The statistical anomalies were impossible to miss. By evening, national media picked up the story. Federal investigation reveals systemic discrimination in award-winning school district ran across news tickers nationwide. In the district offices, Superintendent Wallace met with federal officials, legal counsel, and Colonel Davis. The financial implications are catastrophic, Wallace argued, sweat beading on his forehead. These lawsuits could bankrupt the district. The alternative is worse, Uncle Mike countered. Federal prosecution of district officials for civil rights violations carries potential criminal penalties, including those under RICO statutes for systemic conspiracy. Colonel Davis remained focused on solutions rather than punishment. My team has prepared implementation protocols based on successful military leadership models, clear accountability chains, transparent reporting mechanisms, and protection for whistleblowers. As discussions continued, Jasmine addressed her classmates in a student-only forum organized by Ms. Rodriguez. The auditorium filled with teenagers seeking understanding of the unprecedented events. I didn't come here looking for a fight, Jasmine began, her voice steady. But I was taught that injustice unopposed becomes normalized. What happened to me has happened to others before. The difference was documentation and access to resources. Her composure and clarity transformed perceptions. Students who had remained silent bystanders now approached with their own stories. The depth of the problem, a festering wound beneath Westlake's glossy exterior, revealed itself in personal testimonies shared for the first time. Behind closed doors, Colonel Davis presented district officials with his most damaging evidence: communications between city officials and school administrators conspiring to bury discrimination complaints that might threaten the town's family-friendly reputation and property values. This extends beyond the school, he demonstrated, displaying emails between Principal Foster and 3 city council members. The systemic suppression of civil rights complaints constitutes a potential RICO violation. Superintendent Wallace finally grasped the full magnitude. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Justice, not vengeance," Colonel Davis answered. "Implement the protocols my team has developed, create genuine accountability, protect vulnerable students. As darkness fell, Brittany sat in her family's suddenly silent mansion. Her father paced the study, phone pressed to his ear as business partners distanced themselves. Political allies didn't return calls. The family attorney delivered increasingly grim updates. Your social media posts documenting the harassment are now evidence, her mother said, scrolling through Brittany's phone, her voice laced with incredulity. What were you thinking? Everyone did it, Brittany responded, her voice small, a fragile echo of her former defiance. No one ever stopped us. Across town, Colonel Davis reviewed progress with his team. Photos of students and administrators covered one wall, connected by red lines showing influence relationships and incident patterns. The tactical assessment reflected his military training, identifying key pressure points within the system. Tomorrow, we move to Phase 2, he informed them, structural reform and accountability mechanisms. The team nodded, recognizing the mission parameters had expanded beyond Jasmine's personal situation to address the underlying institutional failures that had long plagued the district. As district officials scrambled to contain the damage, Colonel Davis received a flash drive containing evidence that the discrimination pattern extended to 6 neighboring school districts under the same regional authority, hinting at a much broader, deeply entrenched crisis. The administrative hearing room fell silent as Brittany entered with her parents. Gone were her designer clothes and confident swagger, replaced by a conservative dress and downcast eyes. The disciplinary panel, composed of educators from neighboring districts, sat behind a curved table reviewing evidence files. Dr. Reeves, the interim superintendent, addressed her directly. Miss Morgan, we've reviewed the extensive documentation of your actions. Today, you have the opportunity to explain your behavior. Without her usual supporters, the carefully constructed facade crumbled. Brittany's voice wavered. I didn't think it was that serious. Everyone treated new kids that way. Everyone, Doctor, Reeves challenged, sliding forward a statistical analysis. Our review shows your involvement in 23 documented harassment incidents across 4 semesters. That's not everyone. That's a pattern of targeted behavior. Brittany glanced toward her father, seeking the protection his influence once guaranteed. Morgan stared at the table, defeated by his own unfolding troubles. My friends and I, she began. Your friends have provided written statements, Dr. Reeves interrupted, detailing how Brittany had orchestrated and led these incidents. Tears formed as Brittany finally comprehended her isolation. My dad always fixed things, she whispered, the admission damning in its childish simplicity. Across town, Morgan faced his own reckoning. His business partners gathered in the conference room that once showcased his success. The company logo, recently removed from federal contractor listings, cast a shadow on the wall. The ethics investigation alone will take months, his CFO explained, grim-faced. Government contracts comprise 68% of our annual revenue. Without them, we're insolvent by quarter's end. Morgan's political aspirations dissolved as community leaders issued statements distancing themselves from the scandal. The mayor's office announced a special investigation into his influence over municipal decisions. Back at Westlake High, interim leadership transformed the environment. Foster and Ricks remained on administrative leave, their offices now occupied by federal education specialists implementing new protocols. Teachers attended mandatory training on intervention techniques, learning to recognize and address discrimination immediately. Several admitted their previous fears of challenging Morgan's influence over school policy. "We knew something was wrong," Mr. Abernathy confessed during a faculty meeting. "But the last teacher who reported Brittany's behavior was transferred to the worst school in the district." The counselor who tried helping Jasmine received vindication when her previously ignored reports resurfaced during the investigation. Superintendent Wallace's signature appeared on orders to file without action multiple documented incidents, sealing his complicity. In the afternoon, Brittany's friends faced their own hearings. The unity of their clique dissolved under scrutiny as each attempted to minimize personal culpability. Brittany said her dad would make sure nothing happened to us, Madison testified. "She planned everything and told us what to do." Their parents, confronted with video evidence of their children's actions, struggled between defensive instincts and genuine shock at the behavior they'd enabled. The domino effect continued as previously silent victims came forward. Patterns emerged, showing how Brittany's group systematically targeted vulnerable students, particularly minorities, and those without influential parents. One evening, an unexpected visitor arrived at the Davis home. Jasmine opened the door to find a subdued Brittany standing on the porch, arms wrapped protectively around herself. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice small. Jasmine considered her options, then stepped aside. 5 minutes. Inside, Brittany spoke without meeting Jasmine's eyes. "The hearing panel ordered me to complete a restorative justice program. Part of it is understanding the impact of my actions." "And you came here to understand that impact?" Jasmine asked skeptically, her voice neutral. "I came to ask why you didn't just break." "Everyone else did." "What else?" Jasmine studied her former tormentor, seeing the frightened child beneath the crumbling arrogance. "My father taught me that power without accountability becomes tyranny. Your father taught you the opposite." The lesson lingered after Brittany left. For the first time, she questioned the values that had shaped her into who she became. As implementation of the new safety protocols reached its final phase, district officials approached Colonel Davis with an unexpected proposition, one that could transform school safety nationwide. 6 months transformed Westlake High from a cautionary tale to a national model. Colonel Davis stood at the Pentagon podium, addressing education officials from 50 states. Behind him, slides displayed the accountability chain framework, now implemented in 17 school districts across the country. "The principles that protect our troops in combat zones apply equally to our children in educational environments," he explained, his voice resonating with conviction. "Clear reporting structures, protected communication channels, and proportional response protocols create security for vulnerable populations." His task force, operating under Department of Education Authority, developed assessment tools that identified discrimination patterns before they became entrenched. The military precision he brought to threat assessment provided unique insights civilian administrators previously missed. Prejudice operates like insurgency, he told a congressional committee. It exploits institutional weaknesses and thrives where accountability fails. The solutions are structural, not personal. Back at Westlake, Jasmine chaired the student representatives on the newly formed Safety and Inclusion Council. Her documentation system, refined with cybersecurity experts, became a template for schools nationwide. The app allowed students to record incidents with encrypted timestamps and automatic cloud backup. The power imbalance that enables bullying depends on isolation, she explained to incoming freshmen. This system ensures you're never truly alone. The school itself operated under new leadership. Dr. Matthews, the new principal, brought experience from successful turnarounds in challenging districts. Her first action was removing the trophy cases that once dominated the entrance hall, replacing them with a diverse achievement wall, recognizing academic, artistic, and community contributions alongside athletics. Teachers underwent quarterly training in bystander intervention, learning to recognize warning signs of targeted harassment. Anonymous reporting systems protected vulnerable students while ensuring all complaints received investigation. The old system rewarded silence, Mr. Abernathy told his colleagues during a training session. Our new protocols protect those who speak up. Across town, Brittany completed her restorative justice program. Weekly sessions with a specialized counselor helped her examine the influences that shaped her behavior. Her father's emphasis on dominance, her mother's focus on social hierarchy, the school system that rewarded her family's status above character. The hardest part, she told her counselor, is seeing myself clearly for the first time. The case drew national attention beyond education circles. Legislators cited Westlake during debates on accountability measures for school administrators. Civil rights organizations developed training based on Colonel Davis's protocols. Uncle Mike established the Freeman Foundation, named after his fallen teammate who believed in protecting the vulnerable, providing legal assistance to students facing discrimination. His office became a clearinghouse for similar cases nationwide. What happened at Westlake isn't unique, he explained during a press conference. What's unique is that someone finally had the resources and knowledge to expose it. Morgan rebuilt his life after bankruptcy restructuring, his company now a fraction of its former size. The experience forced reflection on values he never questioned before. He began funding minority scholarships at the local community college, anonymous donations attempting personal amends. As Jasmine prepared to address a national education conference, she received an unexpected message from a reformed Brittany, asking to join the anti-bullying initiative. 1 year transformed Westlake High beyond recognition. Jasmine walked the hallways no longer as an outsider, but as a respected student leader. Younger students sought her guidance during transition periods, learning the documentation and self-advocacy skills that had become her legacy. The system works when you know how to navigate it, she explained to a freshman experiencing integration challenges. Evidence speaks louder than emotion. The freshman, a recent immigrant, nodded gratefully. Before you came, people said this school was hostile to outsiders. Systems change when people demand better, Jasmine replied. But someone has to go first. Colonel Davis balanced his continued educational consulting with limited military duties. Their home became an informal gathering place for students from diverse backgrounds, many experiencing inclusion for the first time. Weekend barbecues featured discussions where teenagers discovered commonalities across cultural differences. "My deployment objectives changed," he explained when asked about his career shift. "The security threats facing our children required different tactical approaches." Across town, former Principal Foster worked at the community center's after-school program. His fall from authority forced a personal reckoning with leadership failures. The humility learned through consequence shaped his interactions with at-risk youth. "I missed warning signs I should have recognized," he told Jasmine during a chance encounter at the public library. "My concern for the school's reputation overshadowed my responsibility to its students." His apology, one of many to affected families, came without expectation of forgiveness, demonstrating genuine growth. Brittany's transformation proved equally profound. Weekly volunteer work at middle schools brought her face to face with younger versions of herself, privileged children viewing cruelty as power. Her presentations focused on accountability rather than shame. "I believed my family's status protected me from consequences," she told them. "That belief harmed others and ultimately destroyed what my father spent decades building." Though she and Jasmine maintained a respectful distance rather than friendship, their collaborative work on school safety initiatives demonstrated reconciliation, possible through action rather than words. Brittany's father, once the town's most influential businessman, started over with a small consulting firm. His office wall displayed framed photos, not of powerful connections, but of his family. The scholarship fund he established now supported 5 minority students annually, his name deliberately absent from the program. "Success built on intimidation collapses eventually," he acknowledged during a Chamber of Commerce meeting discussing ethical business practices. "I learned that lesson at tremendous cost." The systemic changes extended beyond individual transformations. The school board now included diverse parent representatives. Disciplinary procedures underwent quarterly equity audits. Administrative hiring prioritized cultural competence alongside traditional qualifications. At graduation, Jasmine delivered the student address. Her words reflected both a personal journey and broader implications. "True strength isn't measured by who you can defeat, but by who you choose to protect and how you hold power accountable," she told the assembled families. "The systems we inhabit shape our choices, but never eliminate our responsibility for them." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Parents who had witnessed transformation, teachers who had embraced accountability, and students who had learned that justice requires both courage and strategy. Colonel Davis watched from the audience, pride evident, but composure maintained. The mission objectives exceeded expectations, the operational success complete.